It's your man Ron Rios, Voltron Kennels. First off, I gotta plug my own little stuff. Hold on. Gotta plug my stuff. Bossware, built off serious struggle. You can get one of these if you hit me up my DM, and I set you up to be able to get one of these. I got them in hoodies, sweatshirts, t-shirts. Get with me. Also, what I want to talk about today, man, we want to get into a little bit of just bulldog talk, man. I want to call somebody on the phone real quick and see if we can get them, just give us a little history, if I can get them on the phone. I'm going to call this guy. This old geezer. Nah, he ain't an old geezer, but he's my guy. Let's see if I can get him on the phone. Ask him a few questions. Let him know see what he's talking about. If he answers.
What's going on?
Ain't nothing going on. Listen, man, I'm doing the first episode of My Morning Thoughts, our podcast. And I said, who better to call on the first joint than Jay Hunt from Bayfront Mafia? Just ask you a couple questions on how you got started in the dogs and all of that. We ain't getting into no crazy mess. Just want to know, how long you been in the dogs, where you got started, who were some of your influences and stuff like that. Because they putting a lot of spotlight on people who they giving credit for being in the dogs for 20 and 30 years. But if I'm mistaken, you've been around about 40 in the dogs. And so I want to interview one of our states. You know what I'm saying? You from our state, so I wanted to interview you. So, how long you been in the dogs, bro?
Since 1978.
Wow, I was 78. I was 4 years old when you got into the dogs. Jeez, oh man, I'm sorry. I ain't trying to hide my age, but man, that's pretty deep. So, when you first got into the dogs, like, who were some of the influences for you as far as the dogs went?
My biggest influence was my grandfather because he introduced me to the breed of the dog. But I would say my other biggest influence would be my godfather, John Pachaki.
John Pachaki, another legend from our state. So that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to stay within our state because guys is interviewing guys from all over. And I want to put a little spotlight on our state because our state made an impact on the dog game that don't get mentioned a lot.
Right.
So John Pachaki, what bloodline was John Pachaki running with?
John Pachaki had back then he was a Zebo lover, but he had Reese and Dolly, and it was basically Hetrick bred type dogs.
You said Hetrick?
Yeah, Komazinski Hetrick.
Oh yeah. So he had basically the root of what basically I started with, because I started with that Komazinski Hetrick cross coming from Billy Coburn.
Yeah.
So those were some of your first dogs, were Komazinski Hetrick dogs?
Yeah.
Okay. Out of those dogs, like, notably, we ain't gonna get into anything, just notably, like, what was one of your favorite dogs from that particular strand that your godfather had?
He had a dog named Mauler.
Mauler.
Mm-hmm.
Pachaki's Mauler?
Yep.
Okay. And he was a Komazinski Hetrick bred dog?
Yeah.
Now,
he had
that dog there, was he... See, back in those days, they didn't have the benefit of the internet. So to say that dog was bred a bunch of times is kind of... You can't really say that at all, because who was going to breed to him except for somebody that was in the immediate area that knew about the dog? You know what I mean? So it's like dogs like that who probably could have produced on a major level didn't really get the opportunity to produce on that level because of, lack of technology at the time.
Yeah, most definitely.
So That dog right there, do you had dogs off of that Mauler dog?
No, not particularly off of Mauler,
Mm-hmm.
but I had a grandson off of Mauler. His name was Chucky, and he had a little mate brother that John had named Reese. He had Reese and Dolly.
Okay. Reese and Dolly. So those two dogs, that Dolly dog kind of sounds really familiar to me. Dolly. I remember that dog's name for some reason. But my first introduction to the blood that y'all was running with down there was probably in the early 2000s. I ran into a guy that was from down in y'all's area, and he was saying that he was running Cotton's Bullet dogs, and then come to find out the dogs that he had wasn't really Cotton's Bullet dogs compared to, what you had and guys like PA Combine and stuff like that. Y'all had more of a pure form, and I know that they got that dog off of one of your breedings that I'm talking about, but like you had more of a pure form of Cotton's Bullet dog. So from the Kamazinski Hetrick thing, what kind of nudged you into the Cotton's Bullet blood?
Them Cotton's Bullet dogs was they was durable. They didn't look like no other type of bulldog that I had seen. It was totally different. When you had them Kamazinski Hetrick dogs, they was a lot of them was short and stubby, but you had some ones that was rangy. But the bullet dogs, man, they was something different. They had the nice wide spade heads. They always had a peanut butter brindle color to them, opposed to like the Hetrick dogs. The Hetrick dogs was, they was black brindles. They was like a charcoal brindle and stuff like that. But the bullet dogs, they had like the peanut butter brindle colors, different body type, different shape. Bullet dogs they had thick bones. You know what I mean? They're like dinosaurs.
See, you just said something right there that kind of made me. That's what kind of made me turn away from the Kamazinski Hetrick dogs at the time was the build. They were the dogs that we had naturally. They was really inbred Kamazinski dogs, but
right.
The build had that started losing body in them. The bone was real thin and long, and they wasn't as durable as they probably had been at one point in time. And then you was getting stuff like the real deal blood, which was the Honey Bunch Rascal stuff. That was just, it was no comparison to that. You know what I mean? It was just, it had every tool that you would look for. And the Kamazinski dog, I'm going to tell you where we went wrong was because I think we went wrong is getting rid of it altogether, because for sure, it was true to what we call this gang dogs. But, but the thing about Kamazinski dogs is you had to find the right stuff to cross it with, because it didn't cross good with everything. And some of the stuff that you thought was going to cross good with it, it didn't. And so it just kind of lackluster, and then, the times was moving and everything was getting, the action was getting faster paced, and you just couldn't stick around with that stuff for a long period of time. So it seemed like the reason you left it alone is kind of like the reason why I left it alone. I was just looking for what was going on right then, and I wasn't trying to wait around in the past.
Yeah, and it lost its punch. They lost their body type, they lost their build. The attitude of the dog itself was different.
Right. Okay. So I don't want to run our interviews real long, because we almost at the 10-minute mark. So I'm thinking, this is the first one, so we're gonna keep it, keep a cap on it. We're gonna try to do a 2 or 3 hour joint, like I've been, because a lot of that just be rambling. When you first I want you to take us there like as vivid as you can. The very first time that you stepped foot on the legendary Red Becker's yard.
First time I went to Red's house, I had to be about 11, 12, somewhere around there when I first went to his house. Actually, out there with John and Fergie, and because Fergie lived.
Hold on. You're saying Fergie. You know this is going to go on the internet. Explain to these people who Fergie is, because Fergie is a name that I know because I know that's what y'all call him, and you know because you personally know him. But just tell them the famous dog that they would know Fergie by.
They would know Fergie. They would know Fergie by Grand Champion Bronson. They would know Fergie by.
Your phone breaking up, bro.
They would know Fergie by Grand Champion Bronson.
Uh-huh.
And they would know Fergie by Grand Champion Billy Jack.
That's the one I was looking for. See, now the reason why I had you clarify that is because I didn't want people that's gonna look at this video to say, "Who's this dude? I ain't never heard of none of these guys before." You probably haven't, because a lot of these guys is new and they just they getting into the dogs and they learning a lot of it from the internet, and that's why I felt like it was essential for somebody like me and you to get on here and talk to these dudes about stuff that actually really happened, as opposed to stuff that they heard. Try to teach these brothers, you know what I'm saying, how to keep their dogs hydrated in the wintertime and different stuff like that, so they ain't losing dogs, and just some positive stuff on the dogs. But when you started talking about going to Red's yard and you mentioned that name, I wanted them to know that this just wasn't one of the homies you went to the, from the hood that you went to his yard with, that this brother right here is just as legendary. And I just wanted them to know the magnitude of the person that I'm interviewing, because there ain't a lot of guys that's around your age range or my age range that could say they rode out to Red Becker's yard. Well, come on, look how legendary it is. You rode out to Red Becker's yard with John Pachaki and Fergie.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Now, to everybody that didn't catch this in the beginning, if you just...
Pickup truck.
Right. So if anybody's picking this up right now, you clicked in on the middle to see what we talking about. I'm talking to the Dog Hunter from Bayfront Mafia Kennels. That's who we talk to, BFM. So if you get on Peds Online, I'm pretty sure a lot of y'all have already done this. You'll see all of them Bayfront Mafia dogs. But I want to cut you off, bro. Go ahead, take us back to when you first stepped on the Red Becker's yard.
When I first went to Red's yard, he came outside. He had on some what we used to call them painter pants back in the day, but they was construction pants. I didn't know that he did construction at the time.
Right.
But yeah, he had on construction pants and what I would consider was a wife beater, but it was actually a t-shirt with the sleeves cut off.
Right. He comfortable.
Yeah. So, he had this bright ass red hair and a smile like the Joker. You know what I'm saying? So, it kind of took me out of my element a little bit.
Okay, now check this out. Now we getting ready to paint the picture for real now. We're going to paint the picture for real now because, see, you talking about the yard. Now, this is what's getting ready to give anybody that's listening or looking to this when they get a chance to, the idea of what you really walked into. Tell me, what dogs did he have on the yard at that time?
Oh, he had Charlie. He had Grand Champion Charlie. Yeah. Mona.
Grand Champion Charlie. Now, this is something that I want. This is what we're gonna touch on. This is what we're gonna touch, because this is old. It's history. It's ancient history at this point. When you said the dogs that he had on his yard, right?
Yeah.
You called him Grand Champion Charlie. Why you call him Grand Champion Charlie?
I call him Grand Champion Charlie because he should have never lost. He should have never lost that match against Country. It was a stipulation. He knew he was gonna whoop Country. He had no fathom. He wasn't worried about losing the Country. He still conditioned Charlie as if he was going into any other type of dog. But it was a stipulation. He told Pitts, if Country can last an hour with Charlie, he'd pick him up. He'd pick Charlie up. And Red was a man of his word.
Right.
The hour came. Charlie was was killing Country. Country was damn near dead at the hour mark. And
That's my fault. That was my speaker turning off.
yeah. So Red picked up. Like I said, he was a man of his word. You know what I mean? And that's hard to find nowadays.
Absolutely, because when you look at what he did, he probably lost thousands upon thousands of dollars in stud fees by that dog's title not being grand champion anymore.
Exactly.
But at the end of the day, I would have rather went and bought a dog off a man like Red Becker because his honor was intact.
Right.
He said what he was going to do, and he did what he was going to do. Now, to say that Charlie was on the yard, I want to give the listeners a little bit of history. People talk about Charlie. People talk about dogs, but let's talk about Charlie real quick. Charlie beat STP's champion Toro. He beat Doc's grand champion Mo. He beat Ziggy's champion Ali, and he beat Pitt's champion Adam, and he was killing grand champion Country in his very last. What was that? Have been a 7th show?
No, that was it. That was his 6th show.
It was like a 6th show. So you look at the competition this dog beat. He beat the champion, a grand champion. He beat 3 grand champions and was on his way to killing another grand champion when his owner said, all right, he made it to the hour mark.
Yeah. And he picked him up.
That's hardcore. Now I'm gonna tell you something. I'm gonna tell you a story. Me, back in the day, you mentioned, like back in the day when I first got into the dogs that was real prominent was, like I said, the Kamazinski Hetrick, Cotton's Bullet dogs, and you always heard about Ross's Red Devil dogs. And listen, I know I'm probably gonna get nailed to the cross for what I'm about to say about Ross's Red Devil dogs, but I've never seen a good one. Just being honest, man, I've never seen a good one, and I would love to, because I'm a fan of all blood and all breeders and bloodlines and stuff like that. I commend anybody who would sit there and go in the day after day and clean up behind dogs and feed dogs and make sure they're healthy. And if you're doing your due diligence with your dogs, like I'm saying, that's work. But you would always hear about these dogs, so I always equated all of these dogs as being like old bloodlines and didn't really pay them a lot of attention. I'm gonna be real. I had my Kamazinski stuff, but when I moved on to the Honey Bunch Rascal and Jeep Blood, I never looked back. And these guys from Erie, Pennsylvania came down here one day, and they had this little dog named Shorty. Now, y'all keep in mind, I didn't know Jay Hunt at this time. I didn't know Dog Hunter, none of this. And the BMF, I didn't know none of that. They show up with this little brown dog. And in my mind, I'm saying to myself, they finna get the beating of their lives. Man, listen here. To this day, I still talk about that little brown dog. His name was Shorty. And, man, you talking about one of the best dogs I ever seen in my life. He didn't have no titles on him. And then come to find out years later, the man that I'm talking to on the phone right now bred this dog and had his littermate brother and said to me out his mouth, had the nerve to say out his mouth that the brother was better. And I said, if the brother was better, geez, oh, man. Listen. After them brothers left with that dog, and this is no lie, you can get in touch with PA Combine. I must have called them about 20 times and tried to buy that dog off of them. No lie. I wanted him that bad. Listen, and he was unseasoned. You understand what I'm saying? He was so unseasoned. He was green as I don't know what, and I'm talking about this brother learned fast. And I'm talking about, and as he learned, you looked at him and you said to yourself, wow. This blood is awesome, man. I wanted it. So I'm talking about the build, the structure, he fit the mold. And I'll never look at a Cotton's Bullet dog the same again. If it don't do what Shorty did and look like Shorty, it ain't no Cotton's Bullet dog.
Right.
He set the bar for me as far as what a Cotton's Bullet dog, and then it made me understand the abilities of what Red Becker had in Charlie. Because to see this little dog who was a descendant of that dog, I said, man, that's major right there. Y'all had some definite blood. But go ahead, bro. Get them a couple names of the dogs that you bred down off of that strand of dogs of the Cotton's Bullet stuff, because I want to jump into something else too before we get off here.
We had because I had the Frankie Falcone, man. That was a son right off of Charlie.
Frankie Falcone. And if y'all get on Pets Online, that's BFM's Frankie Falcone. All of these breedings and dogs are verifiable too. Can't nobody sit up here and say nothing other to the contrary. These dogs is official, and it ain't nothing but that.
bred Frankie to, there was a guy named Lake Effect Kennels. He had an old Combs History Hedrick Bullet Cross female that actually I helped bottle feed when she was a puppy because the mother wouldn't take care of him.
Right.
He ended up with her, and he named her Dominique.
Okay.
So when she got older, I talked him into, just because it was nostalgia, I talked him into doing a breeding with Frankie. So we did that breeding with Frankie, and ended up with a little female named Girly, Cowgirl. She was a white jib with brindle patches on her, and I ended up doing a father-daughter breeding, and I got my Continental female. So once I got my Continental female, I took her out to Red's house, and I bred her one of Red studs, and that's where Chico and his brother Shorty came from.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So when people talk about, having dogs and breeding dogs and stuff like that, you know what I'm saying? I was trying to keep a family of dogs intact.
Right.
And what I actually did was, being from this area, being from this surrounding area, Blair Hedrick was from here, Komazinski was right down the road.
Right.
My godfather was real good friends with Blair and Walter. So it was befitting for me to keep that type of blood prevalent around our area. So, that's what I did, and that's what I started breeding off of. So I kept my lines pure. I didn't inbreed on them, I line bred on them a lot. And it's still pumping to this day.
Oh yeah. See, I know it's hard for me to sit here and listen to these stories, Lou, because me and you done been over this a million times. What was I gonna say to you? Okay, now that's one facet of Bayfront Mafia. That's one chapter. Cause see, what y'all gotta realize is the guy that I'm on the phone with has history, and when I say history, I mean he was he had his hands on the pulse of some of the best bred Boyles dogs at the time, and he was one of the guys who was controlling the